Welcome back to Veteran Voices. I'm your host, Jay Baker, and today we're talking with Chris Dupee and James Hall. Thank you very much, guys, for joining us again. So, you spent 8 months in Afghanistan, Chris.
Yeah.
How was it when they say end X and you're getting on the plane heading home?
So it comes as a bit of a surprise, in a way. You made it, like, you didn't really look past this. So now you're going into like unknown zone.
Yeah.
I remember landing, in Ottawa, and I really felt bad for the reservists that were attached to us at this time, because we continued on to Petawawa, but those guys stayed, and they were expecting to come with us.
Okay.
And for the most part, that was the last we saw them, and they saw of us.
Right.
So I can only imagine the lack of support that they got, right?
Right.
Because we still had one another. If anybody was messed up at the time, we didn't really know it or recognize it, because we were all messed up together.
But at least you guys were together.
We were together.
That was the important part, right?
So I got posted out. I actually asked for a posting because I noticed and recognized my life crumbling.
Okay.
So this is my transition. So I asked for a compassionate posting to Toronto, which I received. So
okay.
I think if I move to Toronto, get closer to back home, things will get better. But this is my first lesson that you can't run from problems that were in my head.
Right.
Okay. And within my posting at Toronto, with the Queen's Own Rifles, did my PTSD or whatever start to come forward, right? Until finally somebody had encouraged me to go see a psychologist who did diagnose me.
Okay, good.
I was lucky I was in Toronto, because it's a conducive environment, to be honest, for troops that are worried about the stigma.
Yeah.
I don't think I could have transitioned in Petawawa, around your guys.
Once you get labeled with that PTSD brush, it's, career's over, right?
Yeah.
And there's that big stigma. You're off courses, you're off deployments.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're that broken, weird one that no one wants.
And among your peers too,
Yeah.
right? And I do remember.
And no one wants to take a knee and say they're weak.
No, you can't.
Especially in an infantry environment.
You can't even go to the MIR. Like, if you go there, there's a question mark around you now,
Yeah.
and you better do something good to get out of that, So in Toronto, it was more conducive and supporting, and I'm sure it is here in Petawawa too. But there's more of a stigma wake to get over before you ask for help. So I would imagine people on bases and they're coming in a little bit more hot, maybe,
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just a theory of mine. But I finally, I did get diagnosed. I didn't know what that meant. I could recognize the byproducts of the problem, but I didn't recognize the problem itself.
Right.
It took many years before I could even confidently, actually identify with, this is it. Okay, I do have this. Being in Toronto, I'm secluded from a lot of my guys, right? So we're not connected anymore, comparing notes or anything like that. So I was just kind of on my own, and later on, on my own, assuming everybody's fine except for me, by the way.
Right. And that's how it always is.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. But then you talk to your friends, you talk to your guys, and their journey is reflective of yours. And there's something actually comforting about that. You don't wish this on anybody, but
it's nice to know you're not alone.
That you're not alone. And based off of that concept alone, my career is based off of that. You're not alone, and I'm just trying to connect people, right? Trying to normalize this.
Right.
I talked to a World War II veteran. Thank God he's still alive, and we're still able to talk, but he talks about 1946 being the year of the lost souls. As new soldiers, younger soldiers, we assume that, they must have had it made, they were fine, they just came back and worked hard, and
yeah,
it wasn't like that, though.
They suffered. It's just it wasn't recognized as PTSD at that point.
Yeah, yeah. And PTSD being a subject, we try to. We don't want to talk about it. So like when Afghanistan happens, we're learning PTSD again, all over again, right? Because we want it to disappear. But there's a lot of people suffering out there that might not know that they are.
Right.
Right? Or why.
Now, this brings you to Cadence.
Yeah.
You want to tell us a little bit how Cadence started and what it is?
How it started? So I'm out of service. I'm not doing anything. Depressed, isolated. My father-in-law, he starts doing a demo job, and then he's building this new house with an office at the back. And I don't know much about construction, but I asked if I could join. Can I volunteer? Just teach me anything and get me out of here.
Be busy, yeah.
Yeah. So in doing so, which I'm really glad I did because it got me off my ass, but in the building there was an office space, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to rent this out to a professional, and I'm like, maybe, I know a therapist, and maybe there's something we can do here, right? And he actually agreed. So it was because of his agreement with me in that moment that I was even able to do this. So I didn't have any money to start or anything, but I had my father-in-law and mother-in-law, and they had my back, and they allowed us to get started, right? And that's how it started, with one therapist working 1 day a week, and I would have the guys come in that day.
So Cadence Wellness is mental health center and addiction center.
Yeah, so
correct.
We started out as just an outpatient clinic, and we've gradually turned into an addiction trauma treatment center. So now we have many modalities within Cadence, and different offerings, lots of spiritual to cognitive behavioral therapy, trauma therapy, all this stuff, right? So that's kind of what we're going into, and we don't intentionally go this. How I operate is if whatever's needed, let's add it, and this is just kind of where we're at right now.
And I think, and I've seen this with other smaller, non-government funded kind of wellness centers, because you're small and agile, you can adjust your services to what's required. And you're not stuck with this government funding that dictates a certain thing, right?
No.